Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 145, Meno 97d to E. Socrates seems to have convinced Meno that correct opinion is as good as knowledge, and this has led Meno to wonder why so many people put so much value on knowledge over opinion. He seems to be thinking of sophists who are paid to provide knowledge. They are not paid to provide opinions. In fact, sophists do provide opinions, but people assume that they are giving knowledge. We may see this demonstrated in the example of the exercise with Meno's slave. Meno himself may already know that the square with double the area of another square is built upon the diagonal of that original square. He may know this because a sophist has told him, but the sophist, who may actually understand why that is the case, is different from Meno, who has simply heard the conclusion. Meno has no idea why you need to build the square on that particular line. It's a correct opinion, but it is only an opinion. Just as the slave point to the line of 3 units or the line of 4 units. These are just as good opinions as the correct opinion if one doesn't have arguments to refute or confirm those opinions. Socrates had pointed out at the time that the slave still doesn't understand why one should build on the diagonal line, but he says if he goes through the whole exercise several times, he will eventually understand. While this is an arguable point, the interesting fact is that the slave needs to learn the mistakes as well as the correct solution, because the mistakes are part of understanding why one is led to the correct conclusion. Rival opinions are thereby refuted, and one is left with the only opinion which can be correct. Of course, there are problems with this. We may arrive at one opinion at the end, which must seem to us to be correct, but it actually isn't, because we haven't really discovered the correct opinion. But there is a good chance that the opinion we have arrived at is still much better than the other opinions which we have refuted. This is what happens in science. An opinion may be accepted for a while as true because it is well argued, it has a basis in reality, it is predictive, and yet it may be false. So we shouldn't confuse epistēmē with actual truth. Epistēmē is understanding, and understanding means, according to the Greek philosophers, the opinion which can be argued for. And it may be false, but at least by arguing we do manage to refute opinions which are clearly false. An unfounded opinion is almost guaranteed to be false, unless, of course, we accept something that an acknowledged expert tells us, which is a dangerous course of action, but we can do it, and we do it quite a lot. We put our trust in experts and accept what they say, but we should still consider the possibility that what they say is false, and that sometime in the future this opinion will be refuted, and instead of it we may find a better opinion being one which is more attuned to reality. So far as we are concerned in this dialogue, any opinion is as good as any other opinion because it isn't being argued for. There is no way to refute or confirm a single opinion. Even if we assume that someone has the correct opinion about the location of Larissa, it's useless if we cannot prove that that opinion is correct until someone has finally reached Larissa. We may assume, say, 100 people leave various cities to try to get to Larissa. They all believe they have the correct opinion about the location of Larissa. Only one arrives in Larissa, and we say, aha, this person had the correct opinion. But there were 99 other people who didn't have the correct opinion, which makes even this correct opinion useless, because it could have been one of the other 99. The advantage of epistēmē is that we know beforehand that someone applying that opinion will reach Larissa, if nothing else goes wrong, of course. It should also be noted that the moment one arrives in Larissa, the correct opinion is no longer an opinion, but epistēmē, because the travel to Larissa added a lot of information, and it is easier to argue for that particular opinion regarding the location of Larissa. Even Meno has epistēmē about Larissa. He has led troops to Larissa. He has experience of the routes. And this is probably one reason why he's upset at the idea that someone else who doesn't have his epistēmē but has correct opinion may be as good as him in leading troops to Larissa. Even this attempt by Socrates to make Meno think fails, and Meno simply asks this question. He's surprised. Why do people put so much value in epistēmē, given that correct opinion is just as good? And Socrates now has to think of yet another stupid argument which might help Meno grasp a central feature of doxa, opinion. Oista unti hoti thamadzes, ego soi epo, panunge epe. So do you know because of what you are wondering, or shall I tell you? Absolutely, tell me. Meno is staying in character. He enjoys listening to the opinions of others, and he collects these opinions. He will be able to tell other people about what Socrates says. Hoti tois daidalu agalmasin u prosechrekas ton nun, isuste ud estin parhumin. Prostidete tuto leges. Because you haven't considered the statues of Daedalus. Perhaps there aren't any in your area. Concerning what do you say this? We've encountered Daedalus and his statues in a previous dialogue, Euthyphro, where Socrates and Euthyphro blamed each other for having the arguments move all the time. The statues of Daedalus were so lifelike that they actually moved. At least that's the conceit which lies at the heart of any reference to Daedalus and his statues. Here we'll notice it isn't the arguments which move, but the opinions. And in keeping with Meno's concrete view of opinions, it isn't that the opinions change from one to another, but that they tend to run away. Oti kai tauta e anmen me dedemene e apodidraske kai drapetioe e ante dedemena paramene. Tiunde. But even these, in other words, the statutes of Daedalus, no matter how good they are, even these, if they aren't bound, run away, and run away like a slave. If bound, they stay. So what? To nekenu poematon lelumenon men ectestai upolestinos actiones titimes, hosper drapeten anthropon, ugar paramene, dedemenon de polu axion, panugar calata erga estin. It's not worth a great price to acquire one of the creations of that man if it is released, like a man who runs away, for he doesn't stay. But if it's bound, it's worth a great amount, for these works are quite beautiful. As usual, Socrates is using language and expectations of Meno, not of Socrates. Socrates wouldn't even dream of acquiring statues, let alone statues of Daedalus, but Meno is the sort of person who would want to acquire statues, especially statues which are very beautiful. But it does look as though Meno must have some business sense as well, and Socrates is appealing to that business sense by pointing out that even if the statue he wants to acquire is very beautiful, it isn't worth paying that much for it if it's going to run away, like a runaway slave. When you buy a slave, you keep the slave bound, presumably until you can trust the slave. I don't think Meno's slave in the Agora was bound. He came over to Socrates without much problem. But certainly a slave who looks like being a runaway slave, if possible, is a slave not worth buying if you're not going to keep an eye on him. I think we can see where this is going. Socrates is going to suggest that opinions, no matter how beautiful they are simply opinions, and like statues of Daedalus, they will run away unless they are bound. And my problem with this is that Meno has many opinions and they don't seem to run away at all.